You gotta get into the groove.
This is Emily. I'm back with GLIVE. If you join us live, give us the hashtag live. If you join us on the replay, give us the hashtag replay. And of course, a happy weekend to all of you. For those of us who are here in the Southeast Asian time zone, it is, of course, Saturday already. I know that we, of course, are a global community, which means that for some of us, it is still Friday evening. So thank you very much if you happen to be joining us, because you can be doing many things with your time. You can be spending time with your family, and you can be hanging out with your friends or going out or whatever else. But you are here with us again, whether live or on the replay, it doesn't matter. You are devoting your time with us, and we appreciate you for that. And so on the topic of global community, this is exactly what we're talking about. Even though it is the weekend for us, we don't stop. We really don't stop, not even on weekends, for a few reasons. Number one, because we know that many of us are in different time zones, and so it can be a waking hour for any one of us at any given time. But at the same time, if you don't know, we are in the middle of a launch that is really, really important for all of us, especially if you want to be active to continue to learn, continue to improve, and continue to take advantage of this opportunity to earn more commissions. Are these all the improvements that you want to make? If the answer is yes and you agree, type in the word agree inside of the comments. Now, just so that you know, and as a reminder, we're of course in the middle of the launch. If you want to find out more about that, you can check it out on our JV page. As you can see over here, the 4th to the 22nd of February, this is your time to continue to promote this launch, to continue to be a part of history, because our lifetime offer is officially ending. And as you can see with this video right here with Mr. Mike Same, there are prizes as well that you can learn all about right here on the Groove JV page. As you scroll down, you'll see that there are some updates to the pages, and that, of course, the Groove final launch is happening. Here's the calendar of events we've been talking about all week, in fact, about the webinars that are coming up that have been happening. The first week was all about the Grooveathon. If you need to learn more about that, come back right here to this Groove JV page, because you will find all the replay links and things like that. And of course, next week, we're going to start with a brand new webinar already. So if you haven't had the chance to do so, all right, scroll down just a little bit, go to where it says promotional tools. Under links, you will be able to find the links to all the events that are live already. The Grooveathon 2022, as well as launch webinar number 1. This is your chance. If you don't know how to get started still, if you still need to learn all about the software, the best way to explain things to your friends, family, associates about what Groove is all about, then make sure that you watch this live masterclass that's been recorded already, but it was done live. And so with all of that, you will have all the information that you will need that you never knew about Groove. And so with that, make sure that you come and watch this. The good news is that even though the live masterclass is over, our on-course officially are over, the on-demand replays are still available. And according to this calendar right over here, should be available through today, maybe a little bit extension into the weekend. We don't know. But if you want to maximize your time, ensure that, of course, you are watching this and registering for this as soon as possible. Over here, you can see that this has now become an on-demand. If you refresh the page, you can see that this on-demand webinar actually starts once about every 10-15 minutes or so. And so with that, take a look at the clock. When it's on 15, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, or on top of the hour, you'll see the countdown timer to the actual next session, which will be available for you. So make sure that if you haven't already, go over here to register for the next session, and of course, promote this and share this with your friends. Now, going on the topic of course, sharing and promoting, this is why today we do want to talk to you about culture marketing. The reason for that is, as we all know, Groove is a global community. We are multicultural, which means that we have a lot of people from all walks of life with different backgrounds. And so with all of that, we want to help you to leverage on what we have inside of Groove to help you to improve on the holidays, the special celebrations that we have from time to time. I myself, of course, also very multicultural. So that's why I'm very used to working with a lot of different people from different backgrounds and different cultures. For me personally, my dad was from China, my mom from Hong Kong. I was born in Hong Kong, moved to the US when I was 5 years old. So obviously, very multicultural in that community itself. But as I grew up, got older, right, I started speaking around the world and actually moved outside of the US. For example, I started living in places like Hong Kong, like China for a while. I moved to Singapore for a while, Indonesia, Kuala Lumpur, and now I'm in Penang. So very multiverse, not just in terms of well traveled, but also in terms of living and settling down in different countries. And so what I learned over the years is that it's very, very important for us to understand the different cultures, especially when it comes to marketing. Now, as time is going on in the month of February, there's a lot of things going on right now. For example, there's Lunar New Year that many, Chinese people and Japanese people, Korean people, Thai, Vietnamese, they're all still celebrating around this time. And so it's very important for us to be more sensitive in terms of, different people's time zones, celebrations, beliefs, and things like that. And also understanding that it might be a quiet time for a lot of different people because they're still right down smack in the middle of celebration. So we need to know that just because it's the weekend for us and we're spending a lot of time working with different people and doing things and being active, not everybody is active just like us. As some of our guest speakers that we have today that I'll introduce you in just a moment will also be sharing with you lots of very interesting things when it comes to Valentine's Day, when it comes to the upcoming Lantern Festival that a lot of the Chinese people also celebrate. All these things combined really is what makes Groove special, because now it's not just a celebration of each individual cultures, but now as we expand into a monthly subscription plan, as we continue to expand into a global community with a lot more people that we anticipate to welcome into our Groove family, it is more important than ever for each and every single one of us to be mindful of the different cultures that are out there. And so that is why we're very excited that for today, we have not one, but actually two leaders who are helping us to expand, not just into the different countries, but also into different languages and, of course, the cultures as well. So are you excited to be learning with our new leaders? If you are, type in the word leaders inside the comments, because right now, whether you like it or not, we are still in the infancy stages of Groove. We're moving and exiting beta officially, but if you're watching us, and especially if you're watching us #live or not too long after the live, watching us on a #replay, this means that you are a part of the growing team. It means that you also have the chance, the opportunity to grow alongside with us and to expand the Groove family in your own rights, in your own communities as well. So take notes, leave comments, interact, ask questions, and connect. This is exactly what Groove is all about. So let's talk a little bit more about the two different guests that we have here today. The first guest that I want to introduce to you is a Japanese American. And so with that, you can probably tell that, yes, of course, between the Japanese culture and the American culture, it's a little bit different, right? It's pretty much the two different sides of the world. And so with that, anyone who is multicultural like this, there is a lot that we can learn when it comes to how we should be behaving, the different ways that people are acting, the different ways that people behave when it comes to the different countries and things like that. So lots of interesting things that I'm personally interested to learn from our Japanese American friend. And by the way, this gentleman was born in the US, now lives in Japan, and is a leader within our Japanese community. And with all of that, actually it helped a lot to translate a lot of our content into the Japanese language, him and his team and those that he's working with. So it's very, very exciting that we have somebody like this who's very active within the Groove community. Then we also have another young lady. Okay, she doesn't like to be called sister or big sister, but of course, auntie. We just call her a young lady la. Okay, because of course that's what she is. She is a Chinese Canadian who is originally from Hong Kong, now lives in Canada, and she is actually a big part of our Cantonese team. Actually, helped to translate a lot of content into traditional Chinese. And just so that you know, both our leaders are very active in terms of what they're doing because of their multicultural experience. They're also very good at building global teams. You can see them on in their own committees, doing live streams in their own languages and building their own committees with their own fan base and things like that. So if there's anything that you want to learn about building your own multicultural committee within Groove, okay, this is the best place for you to do it. And of course, even if you are, not necessarily multicultural, you could be in Australia, you can be in the US, you can be in Canada, you can be from the UK, right? And maybe you only speak English. The beautiful thing about Groove is that because we're all multicultural already, you yourself do not need to be multicultural in order for you to expand. But the one thing that will be to your best advantage is if you do, of course, understand the different cultures, how people behave, what you should say, what you shouldn't say, be sensitive to all the different things that are going on. And those are all the variety of topics that we will be talking about here today. All right. So are you ready to meet and learn from our multicultural Groove leaders? If you're ready, type in the word ready inside of the comments. And without any further ado, I do want to introduce you to two of our leaders right here at Groove. Let's give a big round of applause and welcome to the G Live stage, Mr. George Nagatsuka and Annie K. Wong. Welcome to G Live. How are you doing, George? How are you doing, Annie?
Hello, hello. Thank you, Simon.
Hi, Simon. Thank you. Great to be here.
George, your volume, I'm not sure if it's just me, but your volume now is a little bit low. So maybe if you can check on that and work that out a little bit. But regardless of the case, Annie and George, they of course are two of our community leaders. And so with all of that, we're very excited to have the two of you here. Let's just start with Annie for a moment and tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, your background, where you're at right now, and a little bit of your experience when it comes to dealing with multicultures within your own community.
It's like Simon just mentioned. I was born in Hong Kong and I came here in Canada since 10 years old. And I basically grew up in here. Yeah, I do learn Cantonese and, with drama and karaoke and with mom. So I know Groove for 6 months and I really dedicate and also determined this is what I want to do for the future. Yeah, so I really love it.
Yeah, Annie is as mentioned, our Cantonese group community leader as well. So there's definitely a lot of different things that you can learn from Annie. Lots of different things that you can obviously learn from George as well within our committees. Follow them, by the way, if you haven't had the opportunity to do so. Check out what they're doing because regardless of your background, regardless of what it is that you want to do, there's going to be so much that we can expand into, especially as we grow into more of a lifestyle software type of platform, type of a company. There's going to be so many additional marketing angles that we can use, and of course, being familiar with the different cultures and different backgrounds is the way to go as well. All right, so with that, thank you very much, Annie. We'll come back to you in just a moment, Mr. George. Welcome
Hello,
back.
Simon.
Hey, good. Your volume is perfect now. So, in just a little quickie, let us know a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what you've been up to, and what is it that you do within the Groove community as well with us.
Certainly. So my name is George Nagatsuka, and I'm originally from the United States, actually from New Jersey. And uh, earlier in my adult life, I was provided an opportunity to relocate to Japan. My heritage is Japanese, and I've been actually living here in Japan longer than I've lived in the United States. But it has been a very interesting journey. Certainly, culture shock was something that I experienced early on, but I'm very comfortable living here in Japan now. And through different experiences, I've come across Groove and now part of the Groove community. And I joined actually back in October 2020 and joined GrooveAsia in June of 2021. And I'm just enjoying my entire experience in growing the community here in Japan. So yes, has been a very great experience for me.
Awesome. Just taking a look at the comments, and it looks like we do have a lot of different people from all walks of life as well. We already are, just so that you know, a very global community, obviously, with a lot of different fantastic people who are multilingual as well. Mingru is saying ni hao. So, with everyone who is already here, you know of all the cool things that we are doing. You know of the potential. Hopefully, you know, because as you can see, even within the Groove platform itself, we already started into expansion. You can see a little language tab over there where, you know, if you want to translate the entire platform, the entire software into Portuguese, you can. Right now, the only limitation that we're waiting for is an integration with a multilingual software that I'm working directly with Anrup, who's one of the founders of Groove. And once we have that set up, we are more than ready to expand directly into different languages like Japanese, like Cantonese. We also have a Chinese Mandarin team. We also have a Filipino team. We also have Thai teams. We have so many people who are very interested in helping us to expand. And by the way, if you do have that interest, you want to help to expand, this is what we are looking for when it comes to Groove. And it doesn't even really matter what language it is. It could be a European language, it could be an Asian language, it can be another kind of language. And with all of that, just know that as we continue to expand, this is why we say Groove is very much in its infancy stages, because we're still very much in the beginning, right? Right now, the platform only has English and Portuguese. Imagine the hundreds of millions of other different cultures that we can be getting into, all because of our opportunity to continue to grow as well. So definitely keep that in mind. And if you want to really become a superstar when it comes to Groove, there's a lot that we can expand into. And so going back into the cultures for just a moment, but what we need to understand is that regardless of what you're thinking about, right? Let's not talk about countries or languages or cultures. Let's just talk about individuals. We know that one size simply does not fit all. Groove may or may not be for everybody. There are those who are aspiring to be entrepreneurs. There are those who are perfectly happy with working a 9 to 5 lifestyle, right? Some people, they like the long trainings. Every time that we have the 1 day training, sort of 2 day training sessions, that's what they strive for, right? They live for that. You know, for people like Annie, she's in a completely opposite time zone of where we are, but whenever we have those long day trainings, right, she usually stays up all night just to spend time with us. And the same thing with us. Whenever Mike and David Lemon have those Groovathon sessions, right, and it's the middle of the night for us, we're always staying up for those because we strive for those long trainings. But then there are those who prefer the short trainings. Oh, I can't sit here for an hour. I don't have 30 minutes. I don't even have 5 minutes, right? So long training versus training, one size does not fit all. That's what we need to understand about our target market as well. Also, sometimes we might be going too fast. The way that I speak, it might be too fast for some people, but for others, it might be too slow, right? At the same time, even on a personal level, some people may like you for whatever reason, and some people just don't like you. They don't like the way that you talk. They don't like the way that you speak. They don't like the way that you are, you are leading yourself, or, where you are, your environment, your foreground, your background, whatever. All these things we cannot control, right? And so with all of that, it's very interesting and funny because we're talking to one of the members of the Groove team recently, and it was like, hey guys, I have a hater inside of the Facebook group. And it was really interesting because it's a hater from within the community in response to amazing value that this gentleman was actually sharing. So the case in point, the moral of the story is that regardless of how much value you're delivering, regardless of your generosity, regardless of your intention to help people, there are things that will completely be out of your hands, completely out of your control, and you just simply will not be able to control it, right? Some people will like you, some people will hate you. So that's the exact same thing that we need to keep in mind when it comes to growing, when it comes to expanding. You cannot control whether or not somebody likes your culture, likes the way that you speak, likes your accent, likes the way that you look. We just need to make sure that whatever it is that we do, that we're doing the utmost best that we absolutely can. So with all of that, hopefully we are excited to continue to learn more about the different cultures. And from what I understand as well, Mr. George and Annie, they actually went above and beyond, and they put together a little presentation for us. So if you want to get into that, you can start sharing your screen. Actually, either George or Annie, I don't know which one of you want to share your screen, but if you want to go ahead and start doing that, we might want to get into some of the contents that you have. And so I think it's very interesting because we're talking about how as we continue to grow, right, we also want to take advantage of the different opportunities that are here, the opportunities of the celebrations and live events that are happening. And so apparently there's some very interesting information that we have in regards to different things that are going on in February, this very month. So I'm going to let George and Annie take over and have them share with us what they mean when they're talking about Grooventine's Day, about sending groovy love from miles away. Let's get into some of the content that you have to share.
Thank you, Simon. Um, yeah, so the first one is, the big event in February. Of course, the final launch is the lifetime premium offer ending on February 22nd. But don't forget have our Valentine's Days on February 14th.
Yeah, certainly this weekend, the love is definitely in the air, or at least in many parts of the world. And that's because, a lot of people are celebrating Valentine's Day. Of course, in the United States, this is one of the bigger holidays and typically celebrated, with flowers and chocolates and dinner reservations. But you may want to ask the question: how do other countries around the world do celebrate this special day? And so here are a few fun facts that we would like to share with you. So we all start out as friends, right? And instead of Valentine's Day, actually in Finland and in Estonia, they celebrate it by calling it Friends Day on February the 14th. Now, this day is to honor both friends and significant others. And what they do is people actually give cards and gifts to other people on this holiday and give it to their best friends or even to neighbors. And also, it's also one of the special days where a lot of people in these countries do get engaged. Now, if we move on to Denmark, Denmark is very interesting because Valentine's Day is actually a new holiday in Denmark. The young people in this country began celebrating Valentine's Day actually back in the 1990s on February 14th in a very unique way. So, as an alternative to handing and exchanging chocolates and roses, what they have done is they've created pressed white flowers, which they call it snowdrops, and these are exchanged with friends and sweethearts. And also, the Danish have a very unique way of also sending joke letters to their admirers. Basically, what they do is they cut paper into, again, snowdrops or spring flower, and the sender writes a rhyme or a poem and then signs the message with just dots, no name. And so the recipient, if they are able to guess correctly who sent the letter, they will receive a chocolate egg or egg at Easter later in the year. So that's quite interesting.
Wow, it's very, very interesting for different culture, right? Yeah, so now we go to Philippines. Philippines, the Filipino, they will be, what they do is amazing Valentine's Day celebration happen in Philippines. On that day, they will be have married couples marry in the group ceremony, and then this is the time they will do renew their vow, and then they will marry on February 14th. Is a lot of people will do the same. Then now we go to China or the other Asian country. What they do, we actually call Valentine's Day is called Lantern Festival because it was celebrated on the 2 weeks after the Chinese New Year. It was associated with love in ancient China. In fact, that's why some way they will traditional Chinese Valentine's Day. So what they do, they will have the lantern rituals. They will have lions and dragon dance, and then they will have family union and also eat the sticky rice ball with the sweet soup, and also watch the firework and watch the dragon dance as well.
And then we come to Japan. So Valentine's Day is also celebrated here in Japan on February 14th. However, it's celebrated with a slight twist. And what I mean by that is it's the women who make the first move on Valentine's Day. They give the men gifts instead of the other way around. So women end up spending time to buy gifts and chocolates and any other treats that they'd like to exchange and give to their male companion or lovers. And actually, in fact, as you can see, there's 3 different kinds of chocolates that are exchanged. One on the left-hand side is called giri choco or obligation chocolates. And these types of chocolates are not very costly. They're relatively affordable and inexpensive and given to friends and male coworkers. On the right-hand side, you'll see a description. Another type of chocolate is called homemade chocolate. Now, the ladies then spend the time to make homemade cakes and cookies or pastries. And these are also given to more special people in their lives, the males in their lives. And then lastly, Tomo chocolate. These are chocolates that are reserved and handed out to single female friends on February 14th. And so what are the men doing? Well, certainly they're receiving the gifts and enjoying the day. And then comes around March 14th. And why this is significant is because this day in Japan is called White Day. And this is the opportunity for the men that receive the gifts to return the gifts to the ladies that gave them the chocolates a month earlier. Just a side note, also South Korea celebrates February 14th and White Day in the same way. However, they spend one additional day in April on April 14th, and this is known as Black Day, where the single friends get to gather and eat black noodles and celebrate being single. So everyone is able to enjoy some kind of holiday either in February, March, or April. So just in closing, I hope that you've enjoyed some of these fun facts. We hope that you may be able to try a few of these in a different way for your February 14th, your Valentine's Day. But more importantly, we are part of Groove. Don't forget to share your affiliate links and add those into your cards, your ribbons, your on top of chocolates, or even write it on the balloons or whatever. In any case, we hope that you are able to have a happy Groovenstein's Day in February.
Wow, thank you very much, George and Annie, for those very interesting fun facts as well. It's definitely a culture shock, right? You mean usually, at least in the places where I've been, places where I'm from, it's always been the other way around, right? It's always been the guy who's initiating, especially for Valentine's Day. Obviously, Valentine's Day is just one of many examples of the way that people would behave differently in different cultures. So, in traditional marketing, you'll see, especially around Valentine's Day, right? You're going to see a lot of ads that says, hey, gentlemen, make sure that you're doing what you need to do to make your lady happy this Valentine's Day, right? But as we just found out, it's not going to be relevant to everybody around the world, right? So just keep in mind that just because we're used to one way of life, it doesn't necessarily mean that in our marketing that it would be compatible or suitable for everyone else as well. And this really goes back into many of the things that we're doing here in the Groove community. I mean, George and Annie, you would know, last December we organized a community party, but we were very, very careful not to call it a Christmas party, right? We call it a holiday party, we call it a festivity or a celebration or whatever else. But we're very careful not only to not call it a Christmas party, but also not necessarily to say, Merry Christmas, unless we follow that by Merry Christmas to those of you who celebrate, or otherwise Happy Holidays to whatever it is that you celebrate, right? Because we are a global community. And we do need to be mindful of those who may or may not have the same beliefs, celebrations, and events with us. Going back to Valentine's Day, I'm not as traditionally Chinese as most people think that I am. But from what I do understand, Valentine's Day is actually a very big event as well. It's not the other way around where the girls give the guys gift. However, one thing that I do realize, it seems like, especially when I'm in my own Chinese communities and things like that, it seems like every single month there's some kind of a Valentine's Day. It seems like every few weeks there's some kind of celebration of, oh, it's Valentine's Day again, so I wonder what I'm gonna get and all those things, right? So it's a very different calendar, so to speak. Just like in Australia, they have a different Mother's Day and a different Father's Day. Same thing in Thailand and many other countries. So a great thing about marketing usually is we want to leverage on different kinds of holidays that are coming up. So now that we know that with so many different countries, so many different cultures, we have different dates for different kinds of celebrations, some of which don't even exist in the Western world, in Canada, in Australia, or even in Japan, in Hong Kong, in China, right? It's an opportunity for us to learn exactly what those cultures are, and when it is Mother's Day in Australia, when it is Father's Day in Thailand, right? We can specifically target those cultures and those countries, even in those languages, to bring brand new people into the Groove community. Let those be our advertising and marketing angles that is unique to that culture alone, which will allow us to leverage on holidays to bring in more people. And so with that said, because we are a global community, a lot of times when we are, let's say, on live right over here, by the way, if you are on live with us, let us know where you are from, where you're living right now, your country, your city, because this will also let us know, what kind of a multicultural community we actually have. And if we really think about the kinds of things that we will, eventually be doing, a lot of things we need to be a lot more mindful. For example, I remember being a part of a lot of different launches where, now it's very common, and we do this at Groove as well, right? But when we do launches, a lot of internet marketers do launches, they go on live, right? They do a lot of live streams, they do a lot of webinars, they do a lot of Zoom meetings and things like that. And it's a way for them to go into the global market, right? But one thing that we, again, need to be mindful of is there are lots of people in different communities. And so some people, they want to, put themselves off as somebody who's professional, right? So everything's going to be very, very polished, very professional setup, right? A suit and a tie, well-dressed, makeup and everything. But here's the thing, a lot of different people, and especially in many Southeast Asian cultures, I mean, obviously not Japan or Korea, but in places like Malaysia or Indonesia, different parts of Taiwan, different parts of Hong Kong, there is more and more a brand new professional culture of being more casual, right? Especially over the last 2 years, people are becoming more and more casual because the times have changed, right? And so when you actually are suit and tie with your hair done and you look like you're a professional, it's not as attractive to, let's say, you see Mike Filsaime, right? Also, of course, being professional and also being very mentor, like a mentor, and teaching and training and helping changing people's lives. But you see him all relaxed and with groovy background lights, right? A little groove t-shirt. This is like the brand new culture. And especially when you're in groove, right? This is our culture as well. So we don't always have to be the traditional, hey, let's dress up, let's put on that sport coat or put on that nice blouse and do our makeup. Sometimes you actually attract your target audience a lot better and do a lot better when you are less polished, when you are less professional in your communication and you say your ahs and you say your ums, you stutter, you look around, you're not as polished and professional like some of the professional speakers that you see on stage. To many people, they connect with you more. So don't let that be, don't let that be a distraction for you. Don't let that be something that prevents you from being confident in your skills to share, to connect, to talk to people. Because again, people want to connect with you, and when they can relate to you, because you're less professional, right? And that's obviously the better way to go. But then once you do that, keep in mind there's the danger, right? The danger of trying to be quote unquote too cool. Because I've also seen in different launches from the past several years, in fact, there are lots of marketing strategies. In fact, in the internet marketing world, it's a lot better for us and a lot easier for us because of our culture. Traditionally, when we went out, and partied and traveled around the world and met up with our JV partners, I think it probably still does happen for those of us who are, in the US or in Canada or the UK, want to travel around the world and things like that. But I remember, the very first time, 15 plus years ago, hanging out with people like Mike Filsaime, hanging out with people like Donna Fox, doing things, on cruises, and we're hanging out, with Rich Sheffrin and Frank Kern and John Reese and Jeff Walker and really all the big names in internet marketing. Yes, we go to seminars. And yes, we have export panels. And yes, people, dress up for those of them who are professional because they're doing a stage presentation. But at the end of the night, the best places where you build those relationships, where those deals are actually made, are at the bars over a couple of beers. And if you know Mike, we basically, at least back in the day, whether on the cruises or in Vegas or in New York or in Mexico or in the Caribbean, anywhere around the world, we built our friendship not at those live events, but what happens after those live events, at the parties where we're hanging out with our buddies in Vegas. That's how we became buddies as well. Okay, so I know that for the internet marketing culture, the digital entrepreneurs of the world, that pretty much is the culture itself that builds those friendships from the ground up. But when we are going live and we're global, one thing we need to also keep in mind is that we do have a global community. And with that, I also see a lot of old school internet marketers, whether they're old school, veterans, or brand new, they try and bring that culture online as well. And one thing that we need to realize, especially when we're expanding into places in Malaysia, in Indonesia, in different places like Thailand, we do have a lot of Muslims, for example, right? And so they bring their drinks, they bring their beer, they bring their alcohol because they're cool and they want to be represented as cool, right? But unfortunately, for some cultures, such as the Muslim community, they don't drink. In fact, alcohol is very much frowned upon, right? So we also need to be mindful of that. And while we can be very, very cool and attractive to a big part of our target audience who say, yeah, man, those guys and gals, they're partying like there's no tomorrow, like it's 1999. These are the people that I want to hang out with. There's also potentially a big part of the audience that we might be alienating, right? So that's also needing to be mindful of things that we talk about, because we like to talk about, drinks. We like to talk about food. We talk about what's popular. And of course, with our cultures, we're very big fans of, let's say, American breakfast. And so they're like eating and they're showing off their bacon bits, for example, because bacon is a very big part of the American culture. But again, keep in mind that pork is also something that's frowned upon within the Muslim community and many other people as well. So with that, we also need to be mindful of the vegans out there, the vegetarians who will be offended by different things that you may or may not have control over. And the fact of the matter is that in today's world, there are a lot of more sensitivity when it comes to people getting offended by different things, right? So lots of things that we need to be mindful of. And so, these are just a few of the different stories that I have coming from the different backgrounds and cultures of where I'm living now, of where I was before. But, George and Annie, for the two of you, you're also multicultural. You're also born in different places other than where you're living right now. So what kind of other personal stories do you have when it comes to, realizing maybe your first realization that one size doesn't necessarily fit all? What kind of experiences do you have of having the clashes of multicultures and your first take on really needing to be a lot more mindful about how things are needing to be done, or how you need to operate, how you need to communicate? What kind of experiences can you share with us? Let's start with George.
So for me personally, one experience, and this is something that I'm still continuing to work on, is actually learning the language. And in general, for what I would recommend and suggest for anyone learning a language is don't just try to learn it from the books or things like that. Actually try to immerse yourself in the culture, and also be kind to yourself. Don't be harsh on how you're not progressing, perhaps compared to other classmates. So for example, I grew up from a Western perspective and joined a class, and all my classmates were from other Asian countries like Taiwan or China, Korea. Everyone started out the same, but once we got to kanji, these guys just took off, and I was left in the dust. And so, if you're learning a new language, be mindful that and accept your own learning pace. And that is, I think, one of the lessons that I've learned and has helped me to um, not focus on that so much, but to be able to progress at a better pace, and also, communicate with the Japanese here in Japan.
Yeah, that is a very great point as well, because I think many of us run into the problem of putting ourselves in a position of blocking ourselves from further expansion because of the language issue. And many people, they try and read a book or they watch a movie, but as well as anybody else, George, right? Especially in Japan, there are multiple kinds of Japanese communication, right? There's the formal kind, there's the informal kind. The way that you talk to your friends is different than your colleagues, than with your parents, than with your business partners and your coworkers. There is, again, nothing that is a one size fits all. So as long as you try, that's great. And a great example would be Chinese, not Cantonese necessarily, but Chinese Mandarin. The thing is, many people think that Chinese Mandarin may be just one language, right? It's consistent, and it's true in Singapore, in Malaysia, in Taiwan, in China, in many different parts of the places like Vietnam or Indonesia, in Hong Kong. Chinese Mandarin is spoken there as well. Not to mention, people who are from these places originally, who live around the world or have that kind of impact, or, foreigners who visit these kinds of foreign countries and learn the language. The thing is, Chinese Mandarin, and we're not just talking about the hundreds of dialects, maybe even thousands of dialects within Chinese. We know that there's many different ways that Chinese would be spoken in different languages, right? In different dialects. But the thing is, even Chinese Mandarin also has a lot of variations. The way that you would say certain things in Taiwan would be completely different than in China, would be completely different in Malaysia, would be completely different in Hong Kong, as well as Singapore. In fact, if you talk to a lot of people where I'm at right now, the really big benefits of many people who are Malaysian and local Malaysians is that they are very, very talented when it comes to language skills. Most people speak a minimum of 3 languages, sometimes 5, sometimes 7, sometimes 10, right? It's crazy, the number of languages that they can understand, that they communicate in. Although for many of them, what we call them and what they determine for themselves is that they're jack of many trades, but master of none, right? Because they're very localized and they're very good at communicating with each other in all kinds of different languages, which they don't need to, because even if they only spoke in, let's just say, Malay or Chinese or English, they can, right, to each other. But the problem is that when they try and speak that same language, let's say Mandarin, to people in Taiwan or Hong Kong or China, they cannot communicate. Same thing in Cantonese. A lot of people, right, they're very, very self-conscious, even when speaking English. That's why a lot of them, we have a very big Malaysian, Singapore community inside a Groove. But when I talk to them and say, hey, do you want to share in training? Do you want to go live? Do you want to do, all these different things where we give you the opportunity to be in front of the Groove family, right? They're shy, right? They're not confident in their skills. They say, yes, well, I know that you can understand me. I know that my friends can understand me, but I don't want people to laugh at my accent. I don't want to, be in the position where people cannot understand what I'm saying and I'm being made fun of. So they're very self-conscious in that sense. So yes, George, you're absolutely right. In terms of languages, it is a very huge blocker. But once again, what's really cool, and one thing that you should probably emphasize as well, as Mr. George already did, he actually is very US influenced, right? Very westernized. In fact, a lot of the different translations was not done by him himself, not done by George himself, because according to George, obviously his own skills in the language is not as far along as where he wants it to be. So he actually gets his family involved. He gets his friends. He builds his own team. His wife, also does a lot of the translations with him and things like that. In fact, some of our leaders who are within the Groove expansion team, a lot of times what they do is, they're not even multilingual themselves. They actually only speak English, but they have the talent, they have the skill to lead and manage the team. So being able to speak different languages fluently is not a prerequisite for you to expand into different languages, expand into different countries or cultures. It's your willingness to commit to being a part of the Groove team and making sure that you're doing your parts in the growth and expansion in that as well. So with that, thank you very much, George. I think it's a huge lesson for all of us. Don't let yourself, your own skills, and your confidence in your language, stop you from necessarily growing, because there's so much more that we can do beyond that. What about you, Annie? I know that I think you mentioned that you're from Hong Kong, and you actually didn't move to Canada until you're like 10, 11,
Yeah.
somewhere around that. So I think 10 years is actually pretty good time for you to be familiar with the Hong Kong culture. But of course, for the last, I don't know, 10 years, 15 years that you've been in Canada, you don't look like you're more than 20, 25. You're welcome, by the way. So with those two cultures combined, and with your experience in 10 years in Hong Kong, not too much more in Canada, what are some of the differences that you can share in terms of the culture, and what kind of stories can you share with us in terms of lessons that we can learn from based on your experiences in the different cultures that you have adapted into?
Actually, when I come to Canada, Canada is a multicultural country. So is take a time to accommodate with them. But for me, I will say you need to think outside of the box, and you just look at your feet. You won't be rich, and you need to think outside your box, and then to do something different and make yourself unique. um, believe that or not, I'm not very good in writing in Cantonese or Chinese, but I find a way. Get my team to help, and I find a way. I use my phone and do some posts, and I use my phone to voice to write. It depends on how you have in your heart. You want to do that, do something you want to make sure to complete, then you need to find your way to finish. That's very important, how you think and how you determine and how you think outside your box. This is very important. That's what I'm suggesting. Yeah.
Yeah, thinking outside the box definitely essential, and it all comes as a part of what we called culture shock earlier, right? Be expected that other people will not have the exact same experiences as you, the same beliefs. So we need to be mindful of that. Make sure that we don't shock people with our alcohol. For the people who don't drink, for our friends who don't eat meat, right? Like for example, we talked about pork earlier, just so that you know, especially if we're going into the Southeast Asian community, one thing that's also very important for us to understand is actually, again, with the American culture, the Westerners who like to talk about food. And when we talk about hanging out, right, it's always burgers and fries and beer and things like that, right? However, there is a big, and as we expand into more of a global community, there's going to be more and more people that we'll encounter who are, let's say, Chinese, who are, let's say, Buddhists as their religion. And just so that you know, there are a lot of people in the Buddhism community who don't eat beef. And so with that, again, more things that we need to be mindful about. And of course, there are the vegans and things like that. But that goes both ways. That goes both ways because rather than only thinking about, how we can be mindful of other people so that they're not shocked by what we do, we also need to put ourselves in a position where we need to prepare to be culture shocked, right? Because now we're going into different communities where we're not used to what they're doing. We're not used to the way that they do things or the way that they talk. And the best way for you to really, and eventually we can do this, but to really dive into different cultures is to go to where they are, right? So when I came to Malaysia for the very first time, I was not familiar that some cultures, let's say, for example, eat with their hands. Some people do things without any utensils, and it's not just with food, with other things as well. And so with all of that, culture shock, right? And so at some point in time, we need to make sure that we need to be more mindful and more sensitive about different things. But at the same time, again, going into the back of the topic of you being prepared to be culture shocked, one very interesting, I think, experience that you may or may not have experienced yourself is that especially in the Chinese community, what we're used to is if you go to, I don't know, maybe in your country, you might have a Chinatown or not, or if you go to Hong Kong, if you go to China, what we're going to see is that in most restaurants, a very common practice is, let's say they serve pork. Let's say they serve chicken. Let's say they serve duck or whatever else. And a disclaimer here, okay, especially for those of you who are vegan or vegetarian, don't want to hear about this kind of stuff, right? Then maybe you want to turn it off for just a moment, because here's something that I think is important for us to know. Being in other people's cultures means that we need to adapt to it, right? And so it's not uncommon if you go to a restaurant, you see full animals of pigs, of ducks, and chicken just hanging as if it's like a show, right? Okay, this is what we're gonna serve you. This is what you're gonna get, right? This is the animal that you're gonna be eating. And so just so with that, right, it's very, very common for you to see that on the streets in Hong Kong, in Chinatown, in the actual country of China, in many places like that, because it's their common practice, right? Very interesting story is I remember one of the first years that I was at Google. Okay, one thing that Google is very famous for is they serve free meals every single day to their employees, and it's like 5-star gourmet meals. I mean, you get pizza, you get pasta, you get steak, you get whatever else. And one day they wanted to be creative. It was the very first year that they decided to celebrate Chinese New Year. It was like in February of 2002 or 2003, something like that. And of course, being as creative a company as they are, they want to adapt to the Chinese culture. And I'll never forget that day when they sent out the email. Usually every single day they say, okay, so, to the entire company, this is what we have for lunch today. And, this is our snacks, these are our appetizers, it's our soup. And on that day, they say, hey, happy Chinese New Year. Prepare to be culture shocked because you're going to come in thinking that you came to China. It's going to be a very exciting experience for you. It's going to be absolutely cool. Prepare to be excited, right? And so what happened was, everybody was very excited. What's this Chinese New Year thing? What is this all set up? From outside of the door, you can see a lot of the decorations going on. And usually at around 11:55 a.m., right before lunch started at 12 noon, they will unlock the doors and everybody would rush in and they would just line up and go and take their food and eat the cafeteria, right? And so what usually happens is there's two kinds of cafes. One is the main cafeteria for those who want to dine in and spend time taking their break, talk with their friends, whatever else, and hang out. And then there's another quick diner for the sandwiches, the quick food, right? For anybody who is in a rush, they have a meeting, they want to grab a sandwich and go for something like that, right? And so the moment the doors open, and we were in the back, we did not make it as quickly as some other people. We watched as the doors open, all the people went in, and within 10 seconds, we saw a U-turn of people rushing back out. Why? Because when we went in, yes, it really did feel like we went to China because we saw a whole bunch of pigs, we saw a whole bunch of chicken, ducks, and other animals that were hanging like as if they were at a Chinese restaurant, as if they were in China, and they were hanging out by the window, with hooks and everything. And it was a culture shock to many people who never saw that, and they just couldn't handle it, right? And so with that, it's great for you to introduce people to your culture, but keep in mind, not everybody would be able to handle that as well. And so as people make their U-turn, of course, they went, okay, I think I'll skip the lunch today over here at the cafeteria. I'll just go grab a sandwich in this other cafeteria, right? So keep in mind, not everybody will be able to accept whatever your kinds of your particular culture might be. For example, some people would be very against the idea of what George was talking about, right? What do you mean ladies are supposed to be action takers? I'm the man, right? I'm the man in this family. I'm the man in my culture. I'm the man in this neighborhood. I want to be the one who takes that action. And so with that, just keep in mind, again, not everybody can be receptive of the different cultures that will be there. So keep that in mind as we continue to grow, as we continue to expand. So with all of that, I think that it is a very interesting lesson as we approach the top of the hour. A lot of different things, actually not the top of the hour. It's already 16 minutes past the hour, but as we approach the hour of this particular live stream, I think that's a lot of different lessons that we can be learning when it comes to different cultures. And really just on that topic, by the way, as soon as we're able to travel around the world again, and you really do want to expand into different countries and you want to start traveling again, right? I challenge you, if you want, to culture shock yourself. Here are some great ways that you can do that. And I got culture shock, by the way, in my own experience. So if you want to experience the same thing that I did, feel free. One time, my family and I went to Korea, okay? And with that, of course, growing up Chinese, we would have thought that there's nothing that you haven't seen. Okay, for example, we went to China one time, and with all of that, we went to a place that our friends took us to, and we saw a lot of great animals flying around, right? There were ducks, and there were doves, and there were pigeons. You see turtles, you see two-legged creatures, four-legged creatures, eight-legged creatures, sometimes even more. And we're like, wow, this is an amazing cultural, natural place. Nice nature. You can hear the birds singing, and everything is just decorated nicely. It was just a very relaxing type of environment. And I said, what kind of park is this? Are we like at a zoo or something? It's just so nice here. My friend tells us, actually, it's a restaurant, right? All the animals and all the nice creatures that you see are meant to be bred and meant to be eaten, meant to be cooked, right? So that was a huge cultural shock to me. I was like, oh my gosh, no way I would be able to eat all these different animals. There's no way that I would even be able to fathom it, right? So thank you very much, but let's go somewhere else and continue our tour of actually something that's natural, right? So again, challenge yourself for that kind of natural shock. And so with that, being in places like that, right? Growing up in different places where you are, used to being the target of shocking the world, we also got culture shocked when we went to Korea. And, one day we were going down the alley, and I don't know if you know or not, but inside of the Korean culture, actually, dogs is is a food, right? It's a delicacy. And so I heard about that. I kind of knew about that because they actually do that in China as well. And being a fan sometimes of watching Korean drama and things like that, sometimes they do show that stuff on TV and as part of the show. So we know that as part of the culture. But one thing that we did not expect was one day as we were walking down the alley that they would do the exact same thing as what we're used to with chicken, with duck, and pigs. And we see dogs, actually, their carcasses being hung in restaurants in a very similar way as the other all the other different animals that is done that way in the Chinese culture. Obviously, things that are not easy for us to talk about, not easy for us to even think about, and so it's almost even a challenge for me to even decide whether or not to share these things, because we are very multicultural. But again, I think it's a necessity that we share these things, because as we again go into a global multicultural environment, we need to be sure that we prepare ourselves for things like this, right? And so it is very important for us to keep all those things in mind and be prepared for what is to come, because as soon as we start growing into different communities, you will be meeting all kinds of people from all walks of life, and I think it is essential that we know what to expect as well. All right, so with that, I think a little bit too much information on a lot of different experiences that we have, but it can be as simple as being sensitive about calling it Christmas or not, up to the point of actually, dogs and pigs and things like that, which don't necessarily have a nice take to most people. But again, very important for all of us to understand that we are now in a very global, multicultural environment, which we need to be used to, whether we like it or not, whether or not we are prepared. All right, so with that, I think that that is a nice end to a story of the multicultural. But before we let you go, let's have some final words from George and Annie in regards to any last minute kinds of motivation or stories or lessons that you can share with us in regards to being prepared of expansion, being prepared into diving ourselves into multicultural communities, and of course the best way to reach out to you as well if in fact we want to grow into the Japanese markets or the Chinese market or the Cantonese market or any other market, regardless of whether or not we necessarily speak those languages. But more specifically, if let's say they do want to reach out to you because they have friends who want to work with you to grow into the Chinese market or the Japanese market with Groove, alongside with our expansion teams and everything else that we do, how can we best do that? And of course, any final words that you have for our GrooveAsia Groove community here today, Mr. George? Let's start with you.
Yeah, certainly you're going to experience some cultural differences, but as Simon mentioned, be mindful of those. And if something doesn't resonate with you, just take a step back, think about the different perspective, and then re-engage. And I think the best thing to do is have open communication, open dialogue, and try to be supportive community and understand the other side's perspective.
Awesome. And then the best way for us to reach out to you, George?
Oh, you can reach me through actually GrooveAsia Japan website in Facebook, or you can you find me in the community in GrooveAsia, and that's how you'll be able to contact me directly.
Awesome. And so obviously with that, Groove is expanding into many different places, and that includes Brazil, that includes all across Asia as well, the different communities and languages and countries within Asia also, and other countries in Europe, and in so many amazing different community members that we do have around the world. So definitely keep that in mind. that we are expanding globally. Reach out to us in whatever capacity to grow into whatever different cultures that you want to. All right, with that, Annie, let's move on to you. Any final lessons that you want to share with us and how we can best reach out to you as well?
What I can say is, we can work together. It's no boundaries, no barrier. For culture, we can learn each other. So I really open about. You don't have to be, Chinese and how the team and anything. If you want to reach me, it's just very easy. Just go to Facebook Messenger and find me, Andy K. Walk. Very easy.
Awesome. Thank you, Annie. And yes, absolutely. There is no necessity, just so that you know, for you to be of any ethnical background to expand into the different teams. Just so that you know, one of our leaders who is right here, join us live as well. His name is Nicholas. He's the most Australian dude that you will ever meet. He lives in Australia. He has never left the country of Australia. He only speaks Aussie English. However, he is leading the path to expanding Groove into additional languages. He is the one who helped to put together different language pages into Chinese, Mandarin, simplified Chinese, into traditional Chinese, into Japanese, into Thai, into Hindi, even in non-Asian languages such as French and upcoming Spanish and all those different additional languages. Right, it really is just a talent of having that commitment to lead the teams and wanting to grow. And you see the opportunity in what we have right here at Groove. There's so much more than what we can do. English is less than 20% of a language that is spoken by the majority of the population in the world, right? Keep that in mind. And with that 20%, that less than 20%, even a smaller percentage of that is even native level, right? The 20% basically consists of people who more or less understand an element of English, not necessarily being from an English speaking country, not even being fluent in English. Maybe they understand just a little bit. Maybe they have seen or watched some English movies or watched some TV shows that are in English and not necessarily a language they're even comfortable in communicating in the first place. So when you think about that, less than 20% of the population that right now we're only reaching within the Groove community in the capacity that it is reaching out to right now, what about all the other languages, the remaining 80+% of the globe, of the world that we have access to, if we just be a little bit more open-minded to start learning more about the different cultures, whether culture or sticker shock or not, whether we're liking the different things that we're hearing, right? Some of the things that we mentioned, the stories might send chills down our spines because, wow, I can't believe that this is what they do. I can't believe that this is the norm, in the exact same way that we can also be a culture shock to other people around the world as well. So it goes both ways. But one thing that we need to know, the moral of the story is that we are a global audience. We are a global community, which means that there's going to be so much more that we will be able to learn from each other as we continue to develop new skills, as we continue to get ourselves used to the different cultures and different people with different backgrounds and all walks of life. So much more for us to learn, to teach, to develop. And that really goes back to us making sure that we do as much as we can in the most effective way that we can to promote and share Groove to as many people around the world. Keep in mind, the Groove launch is still underway, assuming that you're watching us either hashtag live or not too long in the hashtag replay after this live, right? We still have about a week and a half left of this lifetime platinum offer that is going away in just about a month and a half. So do what you can in the meantime to expand into as many arenas as you possibly can. Different cultures, different countries, different languages. And as we transition into a monthly program, rest assured that will be so much more in terms of the countries, in terms of the expansions, and the many opportunities and strategies that we will be using in order for us to become a truly, truly global community. All right, so with all of that, on behalf of the entire Groove community and myself, we do want to thank you for your time here today. Keep in mind that, of course, the Groove launch is going to continue for next week and a half. Be sure to go to the Groove JV page to get your affiliate links. Watch the replay of the on-demand live masterclass that Mr. Mike Sim did for webinar number 1. Keep in mind also that webinar number 2 is coming up very, very soon. We will be talking about agencies. We'll be talking about how you can white label Groove, and we can be talking about how you can partner with us in a much bigger and better way. And that is all coming up very, very soon in the next couple of days as well. So keep in mind, even though it is the weekend right now, we're still going to be full-blown, full steam ahead for at least the next week and a half as we continue on with this launch. So be sure that you don't miss out on any additional opportunities for you to be a big part of everything that we're doing. All right, so with all of that, we appreciate you. Take action right now. Let us know if you have any questions. And of course, we'll see you right back here on GLive and beyond throughout all the Groove shows, live streams, webinars. We'll see you right back here on the inside. See you. Have a nice day. Have a nice weekend, middle of the night, wherever you are, and we'll catch you on the next ones. Cheers.
You gotta get into the groove.